Hello, everyone. It's Mrs. Wallace. How are you? This is Mrs. Wallace from the couch. As you got my post, I tested positive for COVID, so I am staying home today. I hope that everyone is well. I just wanted to do this video so that we could kind of do class, from the couch and introduce a topic that we're going to be getting into. So I'm going to give you a sense of like where we're headed, and then also how you can go about today's lesson, and just kind of sit back and enjoy the ride type of thing. We are headed to look at the Mongols. The Mongols are part of the post-classical era. It really is the end of the post-classical era that we see these like nomadic groups that start to rise. And like Bentley touched on this a little bit, that there are all these nomadic groups that play a significant role in the post-classical era. The Mongols would probably be the most significant of them. Because their empire is just so massive. You've probably heard of Chinggis Khan, sometimes referred to as Genghis Khan, very significant ruler, and his heirs, for generations will rule over a massive empire that's, significant in many of the regions that we've been looking at. So we'll spend some particular time in China. The fall of the Sung dynasty in China comes when the Mongols invade, and they actually invade China over quite a bit of time. And as they invade, they not only conquer China, but then rule China and try to attempt to rule as like legitimate dynasty, rulers. And it becomes quite interesting, and we'll debate some of the role of the Mongols in China. So this is kind of a setup for that, just giving us some access to some of the content. And of course, this week we'll read a little bit. There'll be a little bit of information both about the Mongols and about Song Dynasty China, which we, will kind of dabble in a little bit because it'll be important to get a sense of how China was, what China was about before the Mongols arrived, and as well as after. And then one other thing before we get going here is that under materials for class. So if you look on Schoology and you go to materials for class, you're going to see a folder called Mongols. In there, you're going to see a note sheet. I believe it's a Word doc. You want to complete that note sheet, not necessarily complete it, but like follow along the slides. I don't know that we'll get to finish the entire note sheet with this slideshow, but we'll do a little bit. So you want to take some notes as you're watching. It is labeled, so you'll know that it's the note sheet. The second thing you'll want to take a look at is there's a primary source known as Temujin. Temujin is the birth name of Chinggis Khan. So you'll be looking at a primary source. And then also there is a link for a website where you'll be gathering some information about the Mongols. Okay, so to start this off, who were the Mongols, especially prior to the rise of their empire. You can see the map on the right that says the Mongol Empire around the 1200s or so, really the end of the 1200s. We see the entire Mongol Empire on the map, and it's massive. This is after the death of Chinggis Khan, and it kind of includes many generations of Mongols who have expanded and conquered, and together they kind of encompass this massive, massive empire. You can see all the way on the right, it includes China, includes Korea at a point, and then all the way on the left of the map, you can see it goes into Russia, Persia, and almost into Poland and Hungary. Those are places where the Mongols attack and don't necessarily fully conquer. So it's like a massive empire. Prior to the development of this empire and prior to the birth of Chinggis Khan, who were the Mongols? The Mongols come from a region known as the Central Asian Steppes, Steppes. This is an area, like a geographic area that is really representative of some interesting geography. If you look at the bottom picture, you can kind of see the grasslands of the Central Asian steppes. these would be the types of land that the Mongols would be in. This is land that's good for herding animals, especially sheep and goats and horses, and that's largely the type of economic activity that the Mongols did. This is a group of people who start horseback riding at like age 2 and have tremendous skill sets when it comes to horses. And so, kind of moving along the Central Asian steppe, with their goods and with their animals, it's a nomadic group of people. And, for generations, before Genghis Khan, that's kind of their lifestyle. You can see on the top right a modern day yurt. This is YURT. The yurt is like a home structure that can be built very quickly. In the time period we're talking about, we would see animal skins, kind of like a feltish type of material that yurts would be built out of. Modern day yurts still exist. So in modern day Mongolia, you have people who might be, there's cities and airports and stuff like that too, of course, but there are some people who continue to live a traditional lifestyle. This would be a modern day yurt. In the middle would be some sort of like heating element, back in the day, a fire of sorts. And then the areas of the yurt on the inside would be organized for the family. A couple of things about who these groups of people, were. The term Mongols likely is a broad term that gets, determined later on. The group of people who were the Mongols likely had some very distinct ethnicities. We classify them together because they live in the Central Asian steppes, these variety of different tribal groups. Who is and who isn't a Mongol becomes a little bit challenging and a little bit of a source of debate. So just kind of understand that they're not necessarily all kind of exactly the same group of people. But for the most part, the Mongols are a set group of people who are in a political unit that is very tribal, like we saw in the Islamic Empire with the Bedouin, where there were tribal units that were kind of organized by clan. The Mongols are similar. There are these bands of peoples who are organized by family name. The family that's leading is most significant, and ultimately people stick together based on kinship. They are very, very loyal to their clans. It becomes part of the work of Genghis Khan to actually try to break some of those tribal loyalties to create a more, kind of society that will ultimately be loyal to him. But, before Genghis Khan, tribal loyalties run very deep. There is not a writing system initially in the Mongol Empire. This is not a society that is, kind of prizing itself on literary accomplishments and whatnot. Later on, we'll see the Mongols develop a writing system using the Uyghur script, but there is not one initially. The population is about 1 million people in this massive swath of land. If you look at this map, this is a modern map. It's a little bit better of a map to see the eastern steppes and the western steppes. You can see kind of geographically that this is an area where the steppes kind of fit between a very large mountain range, and the steppes are fairly north, like north of modern day China, way north of modern day Iran and Afghanistan. So even though they conquer a lot of regions in the kind of Asia, they largely will originate from the northern parts of Asia. And just so you have an idea of where that might be, this is a place that the ground freezes. It can get incredibly windy with these like very weird dust storms to this day. And also that very grassy kind of topography is important to note. It is very much a part of their lifestyle. This is just an image, a map of the Mongol Empire at its height. And then we'll start to look at the origins of the Mongols and kind of how they come to get to this particular place. This is dated 1294. And you can see the Mongols will be comprising a variety of khanates. The Mongols at their peak are led by a great Khan who in 1294 is largely coming from China, but there is a distinct grouping of political systems within Mongol society. The Khanate of the Great Khan includes China and Korea. The Mongols do attempt to conquer Japan, but they are not successful. They also try to get into a variety of other regions where they're not successful. But they do have a great deal of success in Russia, the Khanate of the Golden Horde. You can see Moscow on the map all the way to the northern part of the Mongol Empire. Kiev, which would be modern day capital of Ukraine. So, both Russia and Ukraine share some common history in the Mongols. You also have the Chagatai Khanate, right? And the Ilk Khanate, which would be, see the area of Baghdad. The Abbasid Empire will fall to the Mongols when the Mongols conquer Baghdad. So, you kind of have Persia, areas of Central Asia, also conquered by the Mongols. It does not last like this. The Mongol Empire will fall bit by bit. The Chinese will ultimately kick the Mongols out of China, claim their country back. The Ilkhanate, the Mongols will assimilate into Persia. So in modern day Persia, there's still some influence of the Mongols. To some degree, we see something similar happen in some of the other areas. And, the Khanate of the Golden Horde, we don't really see a great deal of Mongol assimilation into Russian society. But we do have a great deal of representation in, they kind of stay as a segregated group, but we still have a lot of legacy of the Mongols in modern day Russia. And certainly the group of people, continue to be in that geographical space. A little bit about the rise of the Mongol Empire. So kind of taking the story back to before the empire, we can look at one individual for some time. This would be, his birth name is Temujin. He becomes known as Chinggis Khan, which is really the great Khan or the great ruler, universal Khan. There's different translations for it. He's born, it's believed, in 1162. Temujin has a very interesting childhood. From what historians know from a work known as The Secret History of the Mongols, there's not a lot of sources that describe the childhood of Chinggis Khan. The Secret History of the Mongols is written by a Mongol. Historians do not know who, so the author is a little bit of a limitation, but there are included in the Secret History a lot of stories about, the origins of the Mongols. Some of the stories are like legends, so it was believed that Temujin was born with a blood clot in his hand, and that, meant that he was destined, for great things, and needless to say, that's kind of what happens. There's also a little bit of information about Temujin's father. His father was actually like a local tribal leader who was fairly significant, and he is poisoned by another tribe. So he loses his father early in his life, and it is also, written that Chinggis Khan at one point kills his brother over, some food or some ridiculous thing. So, this is a child who grows up in a challenging, space, and ultimately is in a position by teenage years to be like, kind of shunned from society. He doesn't have his father. He's somebody who is, trying to, starve and get by. He's not trying to starve. He is starving. He's trying to get by. And he is with his mother. Eventually, Chinggis Khan, before it was Temujin at the time, has to kind of come back into Mongol society and claw his way back into being significant. And so the rise of Temujin is when he enters back into society, decides to become married, and decides to take a leadership role, and he develops some followers. And so he has a adolescence and a kind of young, adulthood life where he is rising in popularity. And then by 1206, there is this massive meeting, and it is the Krylikai. It is a meeting where other Mongols claim that Temujin is the universal ruler. This had not been the case in Mongol society. So before 1206, there was not one central political leader. This was tribal societies that fought with each other. But Chinggis Khan's rise will lead people to follow him and choose him as kind of a universal leader. And so his significance becomes more so than Mongols, previous to him. And I would encourage you to stop the video now and read the primary source from the secret history. You're looking at the Temujin source. There are two excerpts. One is about Temujin and his friend Jamuka, who they were, kind of teenage friends when Temujin comes back into society. He reacquaints himself with his buddy Jamuka, and it's about their relationship, which when you read this, it kind of reads like they're in love or something like that. This is meant to be like a blood brothers kind of thing, like a loyalty kind of thing. And it's written to describe the significance of that like blood brother type of relationship. And then the second excerpt that you have, it's really short, just gives a sense of when Chinggis Khan becomes the universal ruler and what people, kind of claim, how people see him at the time. So take note of those two things. And there are a couple of questions that you can answer. The very first question to look at with Temujin and Jamuka is, what is Anda, A-N-D-A, and what does it symbolize? And the second question is, where do we see evidence of the value of loyalty in both of these excerpts? Okay, and the secret history is a limited source, again, because we don't know who the author is. We don't know exactly what's true and what's not true, but it tends to be relied on because it is one of the few sources that we have about the life of Temujin. So turn off the video and check out that primary source. Check out those two questions, okay, that just noted, and spend a little bit of time writing. Those questions are also in your notes, so you want to go back to the note sheet, make sure you've got that completed, okay, and then just stop the video, but I'll continue on just for a little bit longer. The next thing we're going to do is answer two questions about the Mongols and their conquests, okay? Under Chinggis Khan, the Mongols take on a great deal of conquest. That was largely not the case before Chinggis Khan. In other words, the Mongol tribal groups largely competed with each other. They fought with each other. They definitely got into conflicts with each other. And they also traded with other groups of people. It's not necessarily the case that they never conflicted with another group of people, but they weren't really conquerors that took over entire societies and then took all of the goods or even some of the people from those societies. That starts to happen under Chinggis Khan. So we want to first consider, why is it that the Mongols started to conquer? And there is a space that you're going to go to find some of this information. So you're going to take some notes first before you listen any further. You're going to take some notes from a website. It's on your note sheet, and I will share it with you so you can see what it looks like, so you'll know. This is called The Mongols in World History. It's from an Asia for Educators website put out by Columbia. And if you look at this middle section here, the Mongol conquests, okay, and the Mongol conquest, when we click on it, okay, you're going to get a page that looks something like this. The Mongol conquest, what led to the conquest, and you can see a variety of different arguments. Historians are not agreed on what led to the conquest, so there are probably multiple reasons. And that's what you're looking to do, is to kind of look at the why. You also can continue to look at Chinggis Khan and the tribal group versus Mongol identity, organization and tactics. You can look at some of that information that's there, but primarily take some notes to answer the question, why did the Mongols begin their conquest? Okay, so do that for a little bit and then come back to the slideshow. And this will be the last slide, just so you can do those couple of things, in the time that you have. Okay, so stop, you did the Temujin resource. Now you're looking at the Mongol conquest, pulling some information, even if you just look at that one page and, don't have time to look at any of the other sources on this page, just kind of look at this page. And then we'll come back to the slideshow and then we'll kind of call it a day. The thing that we can see here explaining the Mongol conquest. So what I'm going to do is address some of the things that are in the website. So stop the video, take your notes, and then come on back. So that way you can use your notes to think about some of the information that's here. The ecological argument is a really significant one. There is a lot of evidence that suggests that climate change likely created a great deal of difference, and so that's an important one, and you can read about that. Trade disruptions and the need for supplies. It's very possible, maybe with like the Tangut peoples or another group of people that lived in the area of the steppes, that there was trade, and then all of a sudden there's no trade. So the Mongols might need some of that additional goods. So the conquest might be very, very specifically minded, that there are certain things that they needed. Some historians do argue that Chinggis Khan felt some sort of destiny to conquer, and that it might have been part of his, MO. He really felt that he was alone, able to create this larger conquered society, and maybe it was his destiny. Chinggis Khan is not somebody who is bringing forth Mongol culture to other areas for the most part, nor is he forcing a great deal of religion or religious ideas. The Mongols do have their own religion. It is a very spiritual religion based on a particular god known as Tengri. It maintains a very, very tolerant type of atmosphere, and where the Mongols conquer, they tend to take on the religion of the people that they capture. So this is not forcing culture on groups of people, but Chinggis Khan certainly had a belief in his own people, in his own power, rather. Weaknesses of other societies. There's a lot of timing things that come about. The Mongols will challenge China during a time of weakness. So, early in Chinese history, when the Mongols, not early in China's history, but when the Mongols attack earlier, like during the lifespan of Chinggis Khan, they attack the Jin dynasty, which is the area that includes like modern day Beijing, but it is not under China, it had been lost. And so it's kind of timing is that it's a little bit weaker when Chinggis Khan's grandson will actually take on other parts of China. It's also because the Sung dynasty is split. There's a great deal of conflict. So timing tends to be a part of it. Not always the case, though, but they have an advantage when you conquer a weak society. They have an incredible degree of unity, and they used to fight each other. So Mongol society was kind of organized along these tribal lines, with tribal groups being kind of taught which groups to like and which groups not to like, and fighting with those groups. Once after 1206, there's greater unity in the society of the Mongols. How and in what way to have a common enemy, to focus some of the energy. That could be another argument, okay? And then the Mongols also did try to attack groups before they were attacked, and some of this might be defensive in nature. Personally, I think that's a weak argument, but some historians do make that argument. And revenge, these might be a variety of different, examples of, is it, and maybe one example is in Khorasan, which is a particular region kind of like modern day Afghanistan, that area of the world. There is a leader that um, Genghis Khan wants to do trade with, and the leader basically does not, decide to do that willingly. And Genghis Khan does get revenge by conquering a group of people, and it's a horrifically devastating conquest. And so some of that, and the Mongols are known for ruthless conquests, and interestingly, for fairly tolerant political rule. So sometimes we'll be looking at the Mongols as conquerors, what they did in order to conquer other societies, and then sometimes we'll look at the Mongols as rulers, as they were in Yuan Dynasty China. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for today. It's been a good thing to at least try to create some time together, even though it's not in the classroom. If you have questions about your note sheets, just put them into email, and I'll make sure to address them tomorrow. Check out that one page and maybe a little bit further along in the website by Asia for Educators, and make sure you've read the Temujin excerpt and answered questions in your notes. You want to have your notes filled for the first few sections of the notes. Okay, you can see on the note sheet that there is another question about how the Mongols did their conquests. That is another section on the website. And if you have time, you can do that as well. But we'll look to start with that in the morning. Okay? Be well, everyone. I will see you when I see you. I'm not sure. Okay, bye-bye.